The family of a 23-year-old Flowery Branch man who suffered 2 seizures while in the care of the Gwinnett County Jail disputes the official finding that his death was unavoidable.
Chris Howard went into cardiac arrest back in February, hours after being admitted to the jail. A Fox 5 I-Team reporter Randy Travis reviewed surveillance video, which raises some questions about how deputies handled Howard's situation.
Your residents today, some of this may be difficult for some people to watch. Howard suffered from a rare disease called MCAD, which requires eating on a regular basis to avoid death from low blood sugar levels. Well, jail video confirms he was fed shortly after arriving, but it also reveals something else, a nearly 1-hour delay in getting him to the medical unit, despite the insistence of medical staff.
I just know that my son was healthy, and there's absolutely no way he should have went into this jail and not made it out alive.
Robert Howard figured Chris had survived the danger zone of a disease that had already claimed the life of his first son when he was just 5. Chris grew up to be athletic, popular, tall and lanky with chiseled good looks, a man constantly on the move. The only legal mistakes of his 23 years would turn out to be a drunk driving arrest on New Year's Day and a positive marijuana test on February 15th that landed him in the Gwinnett County Jail, a place from which he'd never regained consciousness.
How often did Chris have to eat to make sure he didn't get sick?
Well, we never even, MCAD never even became an issue. We never even talked about it after the time that they were 13, 14 years old.
MCAD can leave someone with dangerously low blood sugar levels if they don't eat regularly. All of the Howard children have MCAD. Howard says his son did not have a chance to eat lunch the day he failed his drug test at the probation office, but he says Chris had missed meals before as an adult with no issues.
How much do you think MCAD had to do with his death?
I don't think it had anything at all to do with it.
He thinks the answer can be found on jail surveillance video. That's Chris sitting in jail admissions the afternoon he was brought in, chatting with others while eating a sandwich. Jailers knew about his condition. A few hours later, he's on the phone in a holding cell when suddenly he suffers a seizure and drops to the floor. Deputies and nurses quickly arrive, members of the jail's rapid response unit holding Howard down while he begins suffering a second seizure. As he starts to recover, the doctor on call orders Howard taken upstairs to the jail infirmary, quote, immediately. Nurses later told jail internal affairs investigators they made the same request.
I told them I don't want anything to happen to this man down here, so take him upstairs.
Deputies place Howard in a transport chair and cuff him. According to their reports, he was calm, smiling, and asked for some water. But instead of rushing him to medical, deputies decide to put him on the floor in cell 13 for observation, a direct conflict of the medical staff's instructions.
Unfortunately, we have so many seizures around here, and it's kind of like, I related it to the story of the boy that cried wolf.
Chris Howard would spend the next 30 minutes rolling around cell 13, crying for help, unable to sit up, clearly weak, repeatedly trying to knock on the door to get someone's attention. Occasionally, a deputy would peer through the window, then move on.
I saw him in the window of cell 13. He looked very pale, and to me, I remember thinking he looked like death.
But I figured this is something that the nurses knew about, and we'll just keep an eye on him.
So he was sort of forgotten about for at least 30 minutes.
It's one thing we've been looking for is answers. It's been killing us for 8 months. Just, it makes me mad. It makes me sad that he had to go that way.
Eventually, a nurse finds him and insists again he be taken to medical. But for a second time, there is little urgency.
They finally say, okay, yes, let's get him up to the infirmary. And they take 12 minutes to go change his clothes so they can put a jail uniform on him first.
Why? Why would you do that? Why would anybody do that?
Now officially dressed, deputies wheel him toward the medical unit called JJ. But Howard's legs keep falling off the chair.
And that moment we didn't run with him, but we kind of speeded up our pace getting to JJ. And that's when the nurse was like, he doesn't look well.
50 minutes after he was supposed to be taken to medical, Howard had gone into cardiac arrest. Members of the rapid response team would work frantically to try to bring him back, but by the time he was taken to Gwinnett Medical, doctors determined the damage to his brain was irreversible. He was officially declared dead the following day.
At the time Chris Howard was having his seizures here, his blood sugar turned out to be a normal 93. Could he have died from some cause other than MCAD? Could the delay in getting him medical care have somehow contributed to his death? Well, the medical examiner who conducted the autopsy says the answer to both those questions is most likely no.
Dr. Michelle Stauffenberg ruled Howard's death a result of a complication of a genetic disease, MCAD. She wrote, his death had already begun before he arrived at the jail because of the missed meal. As for the 50-minute delay in getting him to the infirmary, she told the Fox 5i team, I don't know one way or the other. I would tend to believe it would not have had an effect. The process was already in motion.
Considering his condition, are you certain that this 50-minute delay would have made a difference and he'd be alive today?
I think it would make a difference with anybody. Chris was 23, very healthy guy, and I just don't think MCAD had anything to do with this.
Well, the internal affairs case was officially closed last week. All jail personnel cleared of any wrongdoing. There is a new policy in place, though. Whenever someone from the medical staff says take an inmate to the medical unit, they are to go immediately, even if they're not in a jail uniform. Makes sense, huh?
That definitely makes sense. And in medical emergencies, we're always taught that every second counts.
Right. Exactly. I mean, even if he had MCAD, and we don't know that that was the case, 50 minutes would seem to make a big difference. I don't get where the doctor would say that that wasn't a factor.
She just thinks that it had already started beforehand, but she also leaves herself a little bit of wiggle room. In the report, she also says it could be that he died from some other unknown cause. So she's not saying it's 100% MCAD. The family sure wishes that he had a chance, though, that 50-minute delay to perhaps get him somewhere else where a cardiac arrest could have been handled by someone of, more medical training than just some deputies pushing him down the hallway in a wheelchair.
I'm sure they'd appreciate some definitive answers as well.
Yeah.
Randy, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, Randy.